I'm going to show you a way to check your table saw's blade alignment with its miter gauge, which is critical for cross-cutting. You don't need any fancy tools, you don't need any special holder for a dial indicator, you don't even need a dial indicator, you don't even need a dial caliber. You need a roll of Scotch tape, you need a miter gauge, and a stop. Doesn't have to be a fancy flip stop, any stop will do. And it just takes a couple minutes. Okay, so this method uses an actual spinning blade. It's a dynamic test, which is different than the way almost everyone else does it. We're going to use the fact that unless the blade is perfectly aligned with the miter gauge spots, one side of the blade will give you clearance at the back and one side will slightly bind. Use a workpiece about 1 inch wide. Raise the blade all the way. In my demo here, I'm going to start with the side that I know is binding it back, and I'm going to show you how I ascertain that, and then how I quantify that by using Scotch tape shims, which are about 2/1000 of an inch thick. First, I will cut the piece to length using just the front part of the blade, and then I'll quickly recut it. By the way, if the blade were perfectly aligned, that little nicking sound that you hear as I recut it is the same thing you'd hear as the piece passed the back of the blade if it were perfectly aligned with the miter gauge groove. Then I'll put a pencil line on the end of the piece and cut it all the way to the back of the blade, and we'll see if, as it passes by the back of the blade, it will remove the pencil marks. So in my test, it does. This is the side with binding. Now let's find out how much. I'll set the stop just a little bit closer and add a single piece of Scotch tape to the end of my test piece. I'll make my cut with the front part of the blade only, and then add some pencil marks and remove my Scotch tape shim and recut it and see if this time the back of the blade is still coming off the pencil marks. Here it's not, which means that my error was about 2/1000 of an inch, which is pretty good. If it didn't leave the marks with one shim, I would add another, and so forth until you find out how much the back of the blade is binding. Now, move over to the other side of the blade, and we see that that side of the blade has clearance. This is the left side, which is the side that most people use for most cross-cutting. This might be the perfect alignment for most people. 2/1000 of an inch clearance on the left, and only 2/1000 of an inch binding on the right. That clearance will help us get perfect cross-cuts, and we'll set the rip fence parallel to the blade for ripping on the right-hand side.